So should we have a welcome? Should there be a welcome? Or are we just going
Oh
to?
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, welcome. Yeah, okay. Yeah, go. Yeah, you do the welcome as
I'm
well.
just going
Huh?
So welcome to the first Big Top podcast. So on the podcast, we're going to talk about each one of us on the team is going to talk about something that is on our minds or is that we're using in work that might be interesting for listeners. And I'm going to kick off by talking about NitroPack, which is a service that we use for some of our clients to speed up their websites. So one of the problems people often have with their sites is that their sites are slow, and that can be a number of reasons. There could be code issues, there could be images that are too large, there could be that it's running on a server that's a bit slow, and some of these issues can be resolved quite easily with some coding work or changing images out. Other issues might be a bit more difficult, and depending on the circumstances, resolving a slow site could be quite time consuming and costly. So NitroPack is a CDN system. So it's a system that scans your website, it creates a mirror of it, and it basically serves an optimized version of your site. It optimizes the code, it optimizes the images, it makes everything run faster, and um, it should, in our experience, has for every client we've used it for, sped up the site very significantly. So, and that helps you then to get better SEO because your site runs quicker and Google likes that. And your site should also pass Google's tests for speed. Um, so that's NitroPack. Any
Cool. Oh, by
questions?
the way, yeah. Well, we should probably actually, in case we edit out, we probably will edit out the bit where we say we're not affiliated to any of these products or services, but we probably will put a link somewhere in a thing or have something pop up somewhere that says what it is. It is nitropack.io is the URL. Yeah, exactly, Katie. We should all sit aside just for the to allow the screen or I don't know. Anyway, we don't know what way we're going to be laid out yet. Yeah, and I suppose Richard would be right to say we predominantly use it on WordPress sites, but it's available for loads of platforms, not just WordPress. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It runs on a load of different platforms. Most of our clients, almost all of our clients, use WordPress, and that's what we use it for. Um, and I think the basic package is about $200 a year, somewhere around there. So relatively cheap, and certainly something that we would recommend clients consider.
Cool. And it's a plugin that runs on the site rather than server side. Is that right? So you have access to a kind of what would you call it? An admin section within the admin of the site. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, so it's a plugin that runs on the website, and then there is a kind of control panel on the NitroPack site. So when you open up an account with NitroPack, you can log in there and you can see what your optimization settings are. So that lets you you can crank it up a little bit, or you can scale it back depending on your requirements, or if there's any issues. So sometimes if you kind of really turn everything up to 11, it can cause some layout issues possibly with the code. So you might want to kind of scale some elements of it back. But it's very controllable and it's really pretty effective.
Cool. Cool.
Is it intuitive? Like, say, if you had a site and you don't know enough about code and you put in something wrong, will it automatically correct it, or do you have to click a button
It
to?
doesn't really, no, it doesn't really it won't fix broken code, but it will take, like, let's say if you had lots of different style, you have a number of different style sheets, or bits of code being called into a page, it will take those and it'll combine them and optimize them so that they run much faster.
Okay.
But it won't, if you've got an error in your code, it's not really going to fix that. Right?
Okay.
There's a chance it might, I guess. You could you could hope,
Try it out.
but that's not what we would recommend you do.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice one. Okay. Who wants to go next? I'm not going to go next. I'm still making up what I'm going to say.
Do you want to go, Katie, talking about your thing and then lead into mine with the AI and social media?
Sure. Why not, Jackie? No, I was just going to really mention the sort of, I guess it is AI in Photoshop, what form of AI, just the generative fill and like being able to, I suppose, manipulate images, expand images, create better quality images for, if it's websites like banner images or things like that. I suppose, so it uses Firefly, which is like a standalone web application, but it works through Photoshop or Illustrator. And I recently found out that you can actually use it in Illustrator as well, to sort of fill vector shapes. So if you've created, I suppose it might, I mean, I haven't tried and tested this, but if you were to create like an icon or something, you could create the general shape and then say, I want this inside of it, and it will fill it with another shape that you can then manipulate as well.
Sure.
So it makes things like that a lot easier.
Yeah.
But the main reason this, I wanted to actually ask Ian a question about this as well, because when we were last week filming that music video and you turned up with the set list, I was like, wow, these images are great. How have you spent time taking all these images of the order of where it's going to be? And were they AI images or like done through?
They were a mix. They were a mix, actually. So I didn't know. Oh, by the way, as well, I know InDesign also uses Firefly as well. So if you're doing documentation as well, just what I think of it. But yeah, but for that, I did use. I went into ChatGPT and there's an image option there, and all I did was I used prompts to come up with some of those images for the storyboard. And actually, I was gonna mention something about that later on. But that was really helpful because we had done a site visit. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, are they the ones you're talking about? Yeah. So yeah, it was really helpful, but it wasn't using. I didn't use Photoshop. I just used the image option in ChatGPT. I'll get the name of it now.
I didn't even realize that it's that option.
Okay.
ChatGPT kind of scares me. Use it.
The image option in ChatGPT is called DALL-E, isn't it?
It's just called Image Generator now. So when you go into ChatGPT, there's on the left hand side there's an image generator, and literally all it does is it looks the exact same as ChatGPT, and you just put in your prompts and you kind of fine tune the prompts until you get close to what you're looking for. It's a bit flaky. You probably saw I was asking for a specific thing, so I said I wanted 5 people each with an instrument, and I gave each one of the instruments. But they kept then throwing extra instruments into the background. So they just, eventually there was loads of instruments just lying around and people's dismembered hands floating around. So then you have to kind of reprompt to get rid of things. So it's a bit, I probably need to learn how to prompt better. I know there's an art to that, and that's probably something I need a bit more learning in. But it was really helpful because I'd gone on to stock sites, and rather than drawing the storyboard, I just feel sometimes it's easier to kind of get ideas by just getting images. And I'd taken a few shots at a site visit. So we had taken some photos and some video on site as well. So I'd mixed that into the storyboard and in fact done a previs as well, which anyway, we'll chat about later on in response to Alex's question. But yeah.
No, yeah, I always find the prompt thing, like sometimes it works great if you're just extending it and say it's quite like a plain background, or say you had me here and you needed the image to be bigger for a certain size and you were resizing it, and it could manage that. But like some images, you may have a scene and then suddenly there's like a car crash happening and you think, how the hell's that happened? And something's going off in the background. But another thing, I haven't actually done this in Photoshop yet, but if you have an image and instead of like prompting it, you can to completely manipulate the image, you could add things in a small section. So say you've done the site visit and you had a picture of the pub or round the fire, then I don't know if this is another thing in ChatGPT, but I could just select a small section of it and just add in something rather than like, is it going to change the whole setup? Because sometimes if I've got the fireplace where I want it in this scene, say, and you just want to add a banjo or a guitar, and then all of a sudden it adds all these other instruments, you can like just select a small section of it and just say guitar, and then it should just add the one bit instead of changing everything. So that's also good. But yeah, as I was doing this and creating the images as well, you can also use it in social media, Jackie. You can actually, interestingly, I didn't know this, to be fair, you can tell it to create the content for your social media. So you can just sit back and say, I want a post on, something we might have done to promote it, and do the work. But
and
It
design
doesn't
content.
generate the image, though. You have to give it the image and it'll just...
See, I don't know if you have to give it an image or if you can just say because a lot of that, so it will create captions and things as well, which is sort of, I suppose, a bit simpler. But you can, as far as I know, this could be all a lie, you can say, oh, I've got this event to promote, this is what it's about, this is a person. I suppose you would need a prompt, say if you were to include a person and they needed an image to reference, but then it will just generate something based on the content you usually post, what you get interactions with, and then it'll be like, okay, well, this kind of format of image works best for them, and then you like try this, A/B test it or whatever. Now, I haven't tried this, and I haven't, we haven't gone this far into it, but there were things coming up saying that, it can generate the content for you for social media platforms. But I don't know whether that would just be, say, like an Instagram where it's mainly image, or whether you could actually do something like that on TikTok, because I feel like TikTok would be, because it's all video.
Well, it is moving into moving images like videos as well, though. That's the thing. It keeps developing further and further and getting more and more advanced and everything, so
yeah,
it could be
scary.
It is scary because then like it can make you do anything.
But I think it's not going to replace people, though. I mean, there still has to be a human input, and I think and that's the thing I'm finding. As I'm sure the prompts will get better and the results will get better, and obviously there's only certain things that it's allowed to draw from, and I think there's questions over that and legalities over that. And I know Adobe are very clever with theirs because they use specifically their content, so they already have image suites and font suites that they can draw from, and so the legalities of their ecosystem is very defined. So I think that's really cool. But I think the more stuff in the wild, and even ChatGPT, I think it's at the moment it's still a novelty. I think it's very hard to get a finished product without either running it through a few different services or certainly having some human input and having to bring it back, as you suggested, Katie, bringing it back into Photoshop maybe to manipulate it again and refine it and just make it look finished. For me, they always look AI, if you like that look, that's fine. And to be honest, some clients we're finding, more and more, we're finding a lot of clients looking for that AI. They want to be seen to be using AI, and that's a feature of it almost. They want to say, they're proudly saying that this is generated with AI. In fact, I saw the side of a bus I think Paddy Power had done an AI version of an Irishman. We asked AI to create an image of an Irishman. It's this guy with a green hat, and I don't know if I'm sure you saw it. So it can be used as a gimmick, and it can be used, but a lot of people are, I suppose, they're looking to say that they're in that space. And I don't know. I mean, for me, it's not quite, well, not even not quite. It's definitely not at a finished level yet, but it's a tool. It's definitely a useful tool in kind of ideas generation and storyboarding and things. But Jackie, you had something as well about that.
Well, it's just about that use. I'd be a bit more less open to it than you would be, I'd say. I'm kind of looking at it thinking it's a bit scary. It's a bit weird, like especially people online on social media, because sometimes it's really easy to see it and you can kind of spot it a mile away, and then other people Like, you just wouldn't know at all, I think. But it just depends on what you're using it for as well, I suppose, and how much of it you're using, and what you're changing in the video or the image. But it's the videos that freak me out, because an image is just an image. But when it's a video of somebody, like there's one woman I follow, and she did a video of herself talking, and as she was talking, she was changing herself into a younger girl, like a teenage girl, and she's in her late 30s, and it's just like, she's like, so if I press this, then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and the video just kept changing with her, and her mouth just kept moving as she was talking, and I was kind of going, that's really freaky, like.
Yeah, I don't know. It is kind of strange, but there's I kind of feel like the same as Ian. It's kind of a tool for, at the moment, for creating images, or kind of developing ideas more than finished products completely. I mean, it depends, I suppose, on what you're looking for. But I was kind of thinking of, we had trialed out a tool called Notebook LM, which is a Google product that's kind of in beta. It's not really fully released. It's sort of an experimental thing. And you can just feed it a document, or you can feed it a website, or I think it'll take audio or video as well. I'm not sure. But it'll then create a podcast for you about that. So we gave it a document, a report, and it created this Talking Heads podcast for two people chatting about the report, and very accurately and kind of engagingly. And then we gave it a URL of a website, and again, just it kind of obviously scanned the whole website, came back with again, similar to two people chatting about the website and all the different things that the organization was doing, and the events it was running, and some of the podcasts that it had advertised on the site, and who was speaking in those podcasts and what they talked about. It was really kind of it was amazing. The downside of it was that it was just a little bit. There was one or two areas where it would make mistakes in pronunciation, and then the pronunciation of names, for example. And then there's also a couple of things where you would kind of maybe want to do it a little bit differently, but as a way of getting ideas for doing, like, let's say you want to do a podcast about a specific website, it was great.
Yeah,
I
it was
suppose
really
as well,
impressive.
like the speed of it is helpful, because like if you think of whether you're doing a podcast or whether you're trying to test social media and finding out what works for your like audience, or creating whatever, we're creating images or whatever it is, like to go and do the site visit, record the podcast, like do the setup, get everyone involved. Like if you can just go, oh, I just want to get the basis down, chuck it into this, and then it gives you something that you can then edit. Like the speed in which you can like get things moving, and as opposed to a day, it could take an hour to even just like get the first step done.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing applies to what we started talking about, which was editing images. It could take in the old days, it could take you hours to just kind of expand an image where you were missing a section, or you're missing a piece, like a photograph with you're missing kind of just the back part of someone's head. And now you can just generate that missing little piece of hair with AI in a couple of seconds, whereas it might have taken you half an hour or an hour to do that manually with Photoshop. It would have taken me about 2 days to do it. I'm so bad at Photoshop. But
it's funny with Notebook LM, actually, the funny thing is the first use I heard of it was a friend of mine who was studying, Mal actually, the singer in the Riptide movement, and he's studying law at the moment, and he had gotten his notes. So he uploaded his notes to Notebook LM and created podcasts that summarized his notes. So when he was refreshing, and to me that's the best use of AI, because the thing about the AI podcast, it created, and so I heard this podcast that he created, and he told me about it first, and then he played it. We were driving to collect some equipment, and he played it, and I couldn't believe it. But it was the exact same two voices that we heard when we did that experiment with the sustainability piece. And I was kind of thinking, after a while, they had the same turn of phrase. They had the same kind of, mock rapport with each other. So they were real hyper positive American accents, which, I mean, obviously, it's not going to, Irish accents are going to be a problem, and it'll never feel localized, I guess, until they solve that issue. And obviously there were still issues around names and different things. But it was really useful for him because he could then listen to his notes back to him. So when he's refreshing, he could be out on a run, just put on his own podcast of his own notes, which for me, that's a perfect use of it. So, no one's being hurt.
Yeah, that side of it isn't scary at all. Like, aside from the quickness, the speed that it's able to do it at is bizarre, but it's more the image side or the video side of it that freaks me out, because if you can make a fake person, make a video using a fake person, or create an account of this person who's not real, then the implications of that on social media, people following them and believing that it's a real person, is just, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, but
Like
it's
the
always the
catfish,
way.
for example.
Yeah, but I think it's always been the case that people have been, projecting an unreal version of the world. That's always been the case. And I think the thing is, as long as people are aware of it, and as long as people, listen to the message and make a judgment call themselves, are they sold by this message? Are they, is it saying something that works with their values? You're right. I think in the wrong hands, a lot of damage can be done, but you can't stop technology because of the potential downside of it. Most advances in technology, it's the potential use for us as Richard, as we've already discussed, the use for us is actually speeding up part of our process, and also. And that brings a client along, and it means that there's some way of kind of letting people know what we have in our minds quicker, to illustrate that point quicker, and you're spending more time then doing the actual work rather than describing the work, that kind of way. So for us, if it speeds up that part of the process, I think it kind of makes sense. If it's doing the work, I don't know. Yeah, if it's doing the dull work, that's fine, the grunt work. But the ideas still have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, Ian, what's next?
I'm going to chat about. I'm going to chat about a great bit of kit. Actually, we had done a podcast or a social media piece about it, but it was terrible. It was too long, and I blabbered on about it. So I think instead I'm going to present it here. But it's the Mars, the Hollyland
Blabber on here instead.
Mars. Huh? Yeah,
Blabber
yeah.
on
So
here
it'll be
instead.
just as bad. Yeah, it's the Mars Hollyland. Or the Hollyland Mars 4K. It's a wireless HDMI transmitter. So I found out about this through Alan Rogers, who we do a bit of work with. He's a videographer that we do a fair bit of work with. He had one. And basically what it does is it can wirelessly connect a camera to an input source, or vice versa. So the first use I saw was he had a wireless gimbal. So he was in the wild. We were doing I think the ploughing championships is where I saw it in the wild. And he was basically going around with a wireless gimbal, and he was transmitting. I was vision mixing, and we had a couple of static cameras that were all wired in. And then he was completely wireless, and he could go wherever. He could go into the audience, interview them. We had somebody else with a wireless mic, and it was a bit of a game changer. So we were live broadcasting. And since then, we've bought two of them, and we use them, in fact, even to go the other way. So if we're sending out a monitor feed to a director, or to, so if I'm directing it, I want to be able to see what's going, what's being filmed, so we can send it direct to that. But also we can send a feed to a comfort monitor for somebody else. So rather than sending the camera, you're sending the output back to somebody so that they can see what's being filmed, or what the broadcast feed is. So they're really useful. And the great thing about them is the range. I mean, I think the stated range is what is it, 150 feet or something. Now, in reality, or actually they say 150 meters, 450 feet, which I don't think in reality. It depends on what else is there. But it does up to 4K, obviously, but as the name suggests, and it's really low latency. So everything is really super quick. So there's no, you don't notice a time lag. And then the other nice thing as well, it's got a really cool little, a really small but colorful display, and you can go in and you can scan for frequencies. So make sure you're choosing the strongest frequencies available, which will help the connection. And it's just really user friendly, plug and play, no problems with it at all. So we use it all the time now, in fact, because also we're working in a lot of buildings that are old, and you don't want to be laying down cables and having to cover them for health and safety. So it saves us even on our kind of our risk assessments if we're not putting down as much cable. It's much handier to just go wireless. So it's the future. It's great, and they're a good value, and we're not getting paid nothing for this. But anyway, we'll put a link here and we'll show a nice picture here. And yeah, they look great. All that good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, fair dues to Alan Rogers for putting us onto them.
Yeah, and that point about cabling though is cabling is such can be a real nightmare to try and wire cameras and sound into the desks in certain venues. It's just because it's really hard to get from point A to point B without getting in the way of the people who are attending the event.
And the tidiness of it as well. I mean, it's just, if you're having cable ramps all around the place, I know you have to have them, and we have them, we cover them, but it just looks dreadful, so we're filming these things and we're broadcasting it. So you want it to look as clean as possible. You're not filming the floor, but at the same time, you're aware that people are stepping over them and all that kind of stuff. It's great not to have to do that.
So
that's about all I have to say on that. Any other questions on? I mean, Katie's aware.
What was Alex's question?
Oh yeah. What is Alex's question?
What was Alex's question?
Oh, actually, I mean, here.
Hold on, I have a drum roll. Hold on, I've got the drum roll. Oh no, it's the wrong drum roll. We'll insert the right one.
What are the challenges you face as a media company? Brackets, any nerve-wracking clients, your fails or achievements?
Where do you start?
No challenges.
I think the hardest thing is that the cheesy old one of managing expectations. I think, it's that thing of trying to describe to people what they're going to get before they get it. The longer if you have a long relationship with the client, it's not that bad because you get to have a working relationship and they kind of understand and trust you. But at the start, the hardest thing, whether it's a video job or a website job or whatever it is, you have to describe what it is. You have to describe the process and bring them along, really show them. So for us, when it comes, and we mentioned it already, that's where AI comes in. In some circumstances, we can mock up things. So if it's a video, instead of just doing a script and a storyboard, now we do a pre-visualization. I can't say that word. Anyway, we'll edit that out. But basically, they've been doing it in movies for years, where you kind of effectively take the storyboard and animate it up. So it means that people know that you've got it on a timeline, you know how long it's going to be. You can put the audio, whether it's a music bedding or whatever it is, and you can sync up the shots. The shots are probably static. You might put in a few transitions. But it means that if the client hasn't got a great imagination, they can look at that and really get a sense of what the finished product is going to be. And it also helps us because it means we know roughly what the edit is going to be. So that kind of thing. And Richard, I'm sure it's the same for website development.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The more you can manage the expectations of the client, the better, and being able to take them through how the site's going to look and get their input and into the design and development. That's the better the outcome usually is.
I was actually asking Matt this the other day in the office. I was like, do you ever wish you were in a job where it was like there was just one answer, it was either right or wrong? Do you know what I mean? Like, it was, if you're a mathematician, like 2 + 2 is 4, like there's no other way about it. Whereas if you're doing up a video or a website or anything graphic design, like, you all know that the end piece, there's an end answer. You're either creating a document or you're creating a website, or there's going to be this one thing, but there are hundreds of ways that it can come about. Like, yes, it's got to look nice and it's functional and it's ticking all these boxes, but your idea of what might look nice in columns and how things should go is completely different to how someone else might think about it. And you might be like, great, this is brilliant, off the desk, and then it's like, oh no, it's not what I had in mind, or can you do this? And then you know, I think that side, that's probably, I found, like, coming into this is like as my first design job, like a big thing of like, oh god, there's actually, it's not just a yep, that's the answer. Like there's a lot of answers or ways that around things that, you know, you might not have considered before. And I suppose it's a continual learning thing as well. Like you then are open to, you become aware of other ways things could be done. You know, like, oh, actually, like that works in other instances, or, you know, it might not be a case of this is always right for this thing, you know. And I suppose that kind of challenge enables future achievements in that sense. Like you then are more aware of things, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're right. You're 100%. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's,
I mean, I think, and part of the thing is not to go too far without showing the client,
yeah,
so that you're not going too far down the road, you know, because we might
yeah,
have an idea, and you know, sometimes it's a case where you have to push a solution that you're confident is the right solution, and bring and you know, bring the client with you on that journey, and you know, so if you have a very strong idea of what the way you think something should be done, and you know the client probably doesn't, they just want an answer, but then they start, you know, sometimes you have to sell a solution. Other times it's more of a collaboration, and you have to then show the client and kind of they have input and take on board their feedback. And I think the best jobs are where it is a collaborative one. You know, it is. I think they're the best. Anything, Jackie, yourself to add to that?
I was going to say, you're going to mention any tricky clients or fails.
I had thought of one. I mean, I won't name them by name, but there was one, and to be honest, it's funny. Usually, it happens when this happened. We were taking over a job from somebody else, so the job hadn't been finished by a previous agency. They're not Irish based, so I can say this. The first thing was they hadn't a huge budget, which that's fine. But we had asked for a certain amount and they didn't have it, so they had bashed us down. And remember, this was their second bite of the cherry, so maybe they had been stung the first time. We had seen the result of the first incumbents go at the project, and actually it wasn't bad. But it was very clear from the start that they weren't sure what they wanted. They just didn't know. And we tried to bring that, and we said that to them, you know, and that was maybe one of the reasons we got the job. So we then said we gave them a clear vision for what we thought it should be, and then we realized that we weren't dealing with the decision maker. And what happened was, which was a pain. So we went really far down the tracks. We had done a load of work, and then the decision maker came in, who was the boss of the whole company, who we felt had entrusted their team to do the job and had given them sign off. They changed everything. And we had sign off the whole way along by the team and had been billing. And it ended up in a dispute. And eventually we walked away. And I know now why the other agency, and that was, I think, the only time we've ever walked away from a job without completing it. And again, we weren't the first. We were at least the second in that one. And by the way, the last I checked, this was years ago, they hadn't even changed the website. So
it never worked out.
No. Which is interesting. But I think they were just tire kicking. And also, I hate to say it, we didn't get paid. And they were abroad, and there wasn't enough in it for us to. They had paid a small amount up front, but they hadn't paid for the work that was done. And that's often the case. And again, you don't know that. That was unfortunate. It doesn't happen very much. But again, there were certain red flags there. And I think anytime, you know, like any agency, I think any good agency wants to get to a conclusion. They want to finish a job. And if the job doesn't get finished, you got to question why that is. Was there a breakdown in communication or breakdown in trust or whatever? But I think in that case, those people felt they could do it themselves, that company, and all they wanted was a company to come in and tell them that they were right. But the problem was they hadn't all the people involved in the process. So I think there are red flags. I think if any good agency should get to a conclusion, and really coming in when an agency had half done it, that was really the major red flag in that instance. That's the only one I can think of. Richard, have you any others?
Yeah, no, I know exactly who you're talking about. That was a good example. No, I mean, we most of the time, you know, projects go pretty well, thankfully. You know, what sets a good agency apart from a bad one is that you work through the problems with your clients and you find a solution that everybody can live with. So where there's budget issues, for example, a client wants something that they can't afford, which can happen, quite often does happen. People want, they just don't realize how much work is involved in delivering a particular idea that they have. But we can usually find a solution for them that's within their budget and delivers on what they need the product to deliver on. So yeah, so I think that's kind of the key.
I hope that answers Alex's question. It probably doesn't. I
No.
hope he lets us know.
Politician answers. That's
Yeah, I know. We haven't mentioned any successes, by the way. I don't know what that says about us. Did he ask for successes as well? He did, didn't he, Katie?
The challenges you face as a media company, and then in that brackets was achievements.
Oh, achievements. Yeah, we haven't mentioned achievements. I mean, there's no point mentioning achievements. That feels like, we're blowing our own trumpet, doesn't it? I think it's better. No, I think you learn more from what goes wrong anyway. I mean, the achievements are obviously when everybody is happy, when we're happy. And look, I mean, and we have loads of those. But the achievement is, I mean, and we all know it's that feeling where we've done a nice job, we're happy with it, and the client is happy with it.
I can think of one achievement anyway that we had recently was the Olympics, Irish Olympic Federation, and we delivered a database solution for them for the athlete management portal.
I thought you were going to say the medal count.
A big success. Sorry?
I thought you were going to say the medal count. That had nothing to do with us.
That's I mean, that couldn't happen without us. Kind of an occasion. But that helped the people behind Team Ireland, the people who manage the team, and make sure the logistics work. That really helped them in their job enormously, and they were really happy with the project and the end result. So that was, it's great to get that positive feedback from clients when they're really happy with the job and they tell you how it's improved their working life enormously. That's very gratifying. And then we also helped the Olympic Federation of Ireland manage their site during the Olympics. So that was, their site got like 100 times literally the traffic that it would normally get during that period. And we've given the site a refresh just before the games so that they could highlight the athletes that were participating and get results live. Everything worked smoothly. We ramped up the servers. We actually used NitroPack as part of that and to manage the server load that was going to come into the site. And it served millions of pages of content over the 3 weeks and not a single glitch. So that was great. And again, client was delighted with that. So pat on the back.
Yeah, a shout out to Owen on that as well. In particular, I know he did. Owen and David on the front end side, and Owen on the back end in particular. Mm-hmm. But again, they're a great example, by the way, of a great client to work with who really know what they want, who are very decisive. Get back. So they're a dream client as well. To be fair, we have a few of them. We're very lucky actually with our clients. So, but they're great. Cool. That's a good place to end, isn't it? That's a good positive place to end, I think. Isn't it? Yay. Well done them, well done us. And we got the medals. We're not hanging the medals or anyway, I don't know. Okay, so next we will be back next month, in a year's time with the next episode. And we all our affiliate links are down below where we get paid loads of money. I don't know how we end this thing.
Is it a weekly podcast or a bi-monthly or?
You ask the audience. Let's not paint ourselves into a corner.
Let's do it as often as we can.